Welcome back to part 2 of our interview experiment episode. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I suggest you go back and start there. Last week, I interviewed Kurt using the techniques we might have used 15 years ago when we were first starting out. Basically, we were winging it. This week, the roles are reversed, and Kurt is interviewing me using the approach he uses today, which is very close to my own. I always say that recruitment is part art, part science, and part magic because we're dealing with people and people are complicated. That's exactly why we wanted to do this episode. Most of us don't start our hiring journey knowing how to interview well. That's not usually a natural skill. We learn through experience, and that's not always a good thing. In this episode, you'll hear a different approach, and by the end, Kurt has a clear picture of who I am and whether I'd fit into his company and the role I'm pretending to interview for. But I think the most important question is, did I get the job? Well, let's find out. I do have a question. Would I be allowed to use AI as part of this, or do you prefer that I don't use it at all?
That is such a great question. Thank you for asking that. I love that. You know what that tells me? That tells me that you would never want to pass off work that you didn't do as work that you did do. And that's super cool of you. But in a world of AI, I can't tell you how much I love that you asked that question, because we do need to learn to integrate with AI. And that does show me that you are ready to present at the very best, regardless of what yours is. Part of the skill is making AI feel good. So I'll give you a quick coaching tip.
Okay.
If it feels like it's done by AI, then you did it wrong. Okay.
I wouldn't want to read it if it felt like it was done by AI.
Welcome to the Sole Proprietor Podcast. I'm Kurt Kempton.
And I'm Melody Edwards.
Each week, we dive into the ethical questions that keep entrepreneurs awake at night.
Whether you're building your own company or exploring life's big questions, you are welcome here.
Well, before we were going to talk today, I made up a list of things that I actually didn't write my framework down, but I have it pretty well in my head. So I'd like to share my personal framework that I've moved to now.
Oh, great.
The reasons behind it. What I did jot down was a few questions that I actually do ask.
Are you going to interview me? Or are we going to talk about the framework?
I can. What I didn't want to do is put you in a position where you do the bad interview, then I do a good interview, and then we go, which maybe mine's not even that good. But I didn't want to put it in a position where Kurt did the good one and Mel did the bad.
I don't care. I'll try it if you want to.
Well, let's first explain the framework that I'm going to use.
Yeah.
And then you'll sort of get to uncover sort of how I'm following it. So the first part of my framework is that I don't want you to feel like you have to be a person for me. I want to know who you are. And that changes everything, right? I'm not going to lead you. I am curious. I'm going to go in as fully curious about what it is that makes you, you. And how do you view yourself? And how do you think other people view you, given that you view yourself that way? So that's the first thing. The second thing is how good are you at this? Well, I'll leave that one obscure for now. I think the questions will sort of bring that to pass. But I want to understand what your capability is. And I want to understand what your expertise, where we fall there in terms of what I'm trying to accomplish. In the first interview, I do not share my main objectives or metrics for the job. I just won't do it because you'll know too much about what I view as success. And I need to know first what you view as success. And then I need to understand a little bit more about what sorts of ways that you deal with failure. And obviously, if someone says they've never dealt with failure before, then either you're dishonest or you're too inexperienced for me. So it's not going to work anyway. So I want to uncover all of those things. And then I'm going to introduce to you the process that we're going to go after the first interview in order to bring you on board, because we don't work with people we've never worked with before. So I'll make sure that gets explained as well. So that's pretty much what my framework is. Any questions about that before we get started?
No, I like it actually. Part of the thing that I do, and it sounds like, you're trying to do the same thing, is try to understand who this person is and not from their perspective of what we want to see. Especially if you're only having a little bit of time with this person. They have this one chance to make a great
impression,
yes.
Okay, yeah.
They have one chance to make a great impression. That's a lot of pressure for somebody, which actually I hold the weight of that. I feel like I don't want them to feel that pressure, also understanding they're going to feel it if they want the job, right? But what
And that's where people like
Yeah.
you and me who are very
Yeah.
compassionate for that,
Yeah.
that's where we'll fill in all the gaps and make sure we tell them, we'll lead them with what the right answer is here so you don't have to feel that pressure.
I know. Yeah.
Would you like to have the answer? I'll just tell you.
Yes. Let me just tell you what I want so that I don't feel bad that you are feeling stressed about it. But like ideally, like I don't even call it interviews. We have like conversations with them. And I want to know things like, what do you like doing? What don't you like doing in a job? Like, we want to match you with people who, like, we want you to be happy with the role that you get. And so, even in that, it can be challenging to get people to be honest, but we ask over and over again, like questions about themselves. So, I think I totally understand and agree with what you're saying.
Okay. Part of the discipline of what I'm going to do here is to try to ask questions that don't get me any closer to the specifics of something I want an answer to. If I start asking you questions that I know what the answer is, it needs to be, then you probably do too. And I'm also going to start getting tempted to like feed you.
So, you're really challenging yourself in these interviews too.
I try to keep the word curious
Yeah.
in my mind all the time.
Yeah.
And if I keep curious on my mind, I usually do okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. Curious is one of our values. So that's probably one I should put out in an interview format.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's say that you're hiring to be a success coach with us. And the ad that you'd be replying to would be that you would help onboard our customers into the software. You know, the job would require you to be in meetings with like Zoom meetings with customers all day, every day. You need to be very creative to solve their problems and understand what it is that they want to accomplish in the software, and then use the robustness of our software's flexibility to match to what they need it to be. And usually you'll have 2 or 3 meetings with a customer before they're pre-onboarded, but then you need to check in with them every 6 months and just make sure they're still doing good. And you'll be running meetings all the time. And then you'll also meet with our product team about once a week and look at what's coming down the pipeline. And number one, so you can familiarize yourself with it. Number two, to give feedback on what changes you know our customers will need. So you'll be bringing customer feedback to the product team as well.
Okay.
Okay.
By the way, this is only my second job interview ever, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had one job interview.
What was the other one?
It was for a skincare company when I became an esthetician. And the interview kind of wasn't even that, because it came through like giving somebody a facial who was the director of recruiting for this company. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted to work there. And she's like, well, we have an opening. You should come and apply. And I don't remember there being much of an application process. So, but then I got laid off 3 months later. So I don't count that really. It's a blip on the radar.
Why'd you get laid off?
Because I worked too hard, which sounds crazy, but I promise you, you can't ask for work all the time when you are an employee in a company, because they'll start to notice that you're always asking for work and you're supposed to look busy at all times. This was a corporation. I didn't know the game, Kurt. I didn't know the game. And I don't know that I would have been a good office worker. I tried for 2 or 3 months, but there was just so much still time, like downtime. And I'm a helper. I wanted to help. So, yeah, if somebody was always asking for more work, wouldn't you get to the point where you're like, I don't know if we need them anymore?
No, I would probably
Because you're a good
put them on a
company.
pedestal and I would ask everybody to like, please look at this person.
I know. But I was a gift coordinator. That's not a real job. It's not a full-time job. So it was literally just making gifts for semi-famous people and then mailing it to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we go. Now, I interview people and I don't have really much of a luxury of seeing you walk into the room because we're going to be doing Zoom.
It's okay.
But obviously, if you're not in my waiting room a couple minutes early,
Is that a
I
red
will
flag for you?
I would note it. I mean, it's an interview and being on time is important. It's part of one of our company values, being prepared. And
Yeah.
we show up to meetings prepared.
That's definitely true. Like, I have trouble with Zoom all the time. And it tends to be if I'm not there a few minutes early to figure it out, if it's an important thing to me, then it ends up that I'm a few minutes late. So, yeah, you definitely want people in the room soon.
Well, Melody, thank you for showing up to this Zoom call. I'm super excited to talk to you about the position that we have and sort of what drew you to it. So thanks for being
Thank
here.
you. Thanks. I'm excited.
How did you hear about the ad, by the way? I'm just curious.
Well, I think it was my friend who told me about it actually, because they thought I might be a good fit and they knew that I was not feeling fulfilled at my last position.
Oh no, what was going on at your last place?
It was a good company, but it was feeling pretty stagnant. And I didn't feel like I was serving people the way that I would want to. And so I got bored, basically.
Well, what company is it?
UPS.
UPS. And what was it that you were hoping like that would have kept you from getting stagnant?
I was doing a lot of calls, like customer support calls, and there wasn't a lot of problem solving involved in it. It was more like read the script, figure out based on which script that you're using, which direction you should go. Everything was kind of predetermined in a way. And that felt very constricting because I like to help people in meaningful ways. And I think it was a bigger company. Of course, they have to have those kinds of rules in place, but
Yeah.
it didn't feel great,
Okay.
because I knew I couldn't always help people the way that they deserve to be supported.
What did growth in the position look like for you as far as like, obviously being able to make decisions on individual calls, but like, after a couple of years with the company, what would you have hoped that you're like really good at problem solving or that you moved up in the company or like what were you looking for?
Honestly, I just like to help people. So if I was feeling like I was in a support role where I could more like a management role probably would have been good because they have more power to be able to make decisions based on the situation and not just based on what the book says. And that was just frustrating for me. I know that might not sound good to say it out loud, but it's really how I felt.
Okay. Is it okay if I repeat back to you what I heard
Yeah.
and just make sure? Okay.
Please.
So if you had the autonomy of being able to like creatively solve problems for people, but didn't really have any promise of growing within the company itself, did I hear you say that in and of itself would have been fulfilling enough for you to be able to just become an expert in that domain?
Yeah, I think so. As long as I like being able to kind of solve different kinds of problems every day and
Okay.
having the autonomy to do it. Now, of course, there's rules. It's not like I'm just making stuff up for people. I want to be accurate, but it's really more about being able to actually solve a problem for somebody and not just say, I mean, Kurt, have you ever been on a call with somebody and you need your problem solved and they say, I understand, sir. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Unfortunately, I can't do anything about this situation.
Well, two notes. First
Yeah.
of all, yes, literally this morning I had that call with the people who manufactured my
Oh,
landscape Wi-Fi watering station thing. And secondly, you have no idea how much I understand what you're talking about in
yeah.
terms of that expert in your domain and creativity and solution. That's literally the reason we're meeting today. So
Oh,
that's good to
great.
hear that.
I'm glad that you understand. I mean, nobody wants to have that experience. And I think people forget there's a human on the other side of that line who also doesn't want to be saying, sorry, it can't help.
Yeah. Let me ask you a little bit more about sort of what lights you up. So, can I hear about maybe any workplace that you've ever worked at that you're like, I jumped out of bed to go work there? I'd like to hear a bit about that.
Oh, I was a window cleaner for a while.
No
And
kidding.
I was, yeah.
Wow,
And
that's fascinating.
I really enjoyed going different places every day, but really getting to meet different people every day was pretty exciting. I'm a pretty curious person. And so I learned a lot about people just by how they lived or our conversations that we had. And I also really liked the idea that I got to work hard, but at the end of the day, I had accomplished something that I could feel good about. I had made people feel happy because their windows were clean. I felt satisfied because we could leave the job and it was usually complete. Yeah, it was a satisfying job most days. I won't say it always was like that, of course, but I did enjoy that job.
I'm just taking some notes here. I want to make sure I got it all. So, the people, you enjoyed meeting new people all the time. You enjoyed being able to go into new locations every day and be able to call it complete. And then having also myself been a window cleaner, it sounds like
Oh,
the ability to see a job go from, the way it looked when you got there to seeing an appreciable difference at the end was quite fulfilling.
yeah, that was very fulfilling.
Did I miss anything else in that lit you up?
I liked being a part of the team at that company. They had a really great culture.
Oh, okay.
And they made it fun to go into work. Like I felt like just being a part of that team, we felt like we were kind of completing a mission together. And that was meaningful. I've been on other teams that didn't feel as good. And so I can really tell like the difference is night and day when it's a
So I
good
want to get into
culture.
that as well. I want to ask you questions about places that you've worked that have been that fun. But before we take that stop, I am so curious, what made it so that you couldn't keep being a window cleaner? Why is it that you had to go?
Window cleaning is really hard on your body. And it's a job that requires a lot of strength. To be honest, I ended up getting a small injury. And at the end of the season, I just decided that I probably needed to make a change. But I really love that company still. If I could do it, I would go back in a heartbeat.
That's cool. And do you think they would, if I was to call them, they would be stoked to have you back too?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I think I was a pretty good employee for them.
Obviously, we take culture really seriously as well. So I think it'd be really
Oh,
great to get the information of that company just to
okay.
sort of like talk to like what it's like to work with you. That's something that we'll talk about at the end. Learning to work with each other is really cool.
Okay.
So tell me about the places that you worked that maybe turned you off, and I want to understand like the actual, I'm sure that you probably didn't accept the job unless you liked it. So
Yeah.
this time I want to focus more on the things that like, I just can't stay because of X or Y.
Well, when I was younger, I had a couple seasonal jobs that were really difficult. And the main job that I'm thinking of was elf for Santa Claus.
Uh-huh. You were an elf for Santa?
Yeah, I have an NDA, so I can't really talk about it
Oh,
too
wow.
much, but I can give some details.
This is,
Yeah,
I'm
it's true
really
story.
loving this interview. Just want to let you know.
Okay, so this is true. I was an elf when I was 14 and 15 years old for Santa Claus. And it was great to have all those kids come in and we got to be in the line and we'd be like hammering on the same piece of wood for 6 hours in a row, but like doing it in fun little different ways so that the kids would be entertained and have conversations. But the thing that really made it so that I couldn't continue was the mustache that I had to wear every day.
Oh, wow. Wearing a mustache. And
Yeah.
you asked them about not
They
having to
said
wear it?
elves need mustaches, and the glue that we put on every day for the mustache, I was semi-allergic to it, and it really hurt when you pulled it off every night.
I'm curious about like what led up to like the problem solving of all of that when you were trying to like, should I stay or should I go kind of thing. How did that
Well,
process all
that
work
one
out?
was a seasonal job. As you know, Santa is seasonal.
Oh, he doesn't use elves all year round, I guess.
Not in America. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was a quick, I think, 3-week job. And I liked the job itself. I liked my coworkers. It just the mustache. I couldn't do it anymore.
Oh, maybe I should ask this question
Yeah.
then. Did you stay the whole time or did you have to go before your term was up because of the mustache?
Oh no, I stayed.
Oh, you toughed it out even
Yeah.
amid allergic reactions
Yeah.
and everything else.
I just
Okay.
felt like I didn't want to let them down, like cuz it was actually kind of like a cool gig to have, but they hire a certain number of people and it was such a short amount of time. I would have been letting down my coworkers if I left early. So, yeah.
Oh,
And some of
wow.
my coworkers were my friends, and that would have they wouldn't have liked that.
Uh-huh. Well, then let's get a different example. And I'm not saying that you've ever had to walk out of something early, but I would like to understand a bit more about where are you going to draw that line? Because at some point, you've talked to them about it and they're not willing to make concessions. Any self respecting person has got to draw a line somewhere. Where do you
Yeah.
draw the line?
Well, when I was younger, I worked for a dog groomer, like a dog kennel, and they were very hard. I don't think they'd ever been bosses before, and it was really, really tough to work for them. They kind of were mean, and we were just
Oh.
yeah, I was kind of younger, but I was basically cleaning up after dogs and cats, so I feel like it's not a fun job necessarily, but I don't feel like they ever felt I was doing good enough, and so I have to admit I did get fired from that job.
Tell me a little bit about. I'm not saying that we as an employer would disrespect our employees, certainly intentionally.
Yeah.
But in a situation, if you were to give advice from the life that you've lived up to this point to the girl who worked for that dog groomer who can't control them, sounds like you were fired, which means it was probably not on your specific terms. What advice would you give to your younger self about how to deal with these people who are obviously disrespecting you?
Well, I didn't know that I could quit. That didn't seem like an option. And so I think now I would have been like, you don't let people talk to you like that. It was very like they'd yell at me sometimes, and sometimes they would say I hadn't done something right. The reason I got fired was because I put a pair of shoes on top of a wastebasket when I was vacuuming in a bathroom, I think, and they fell into the wastebasket, but I forgot that they were there. And so that's why I got fired. I also will say, again, I don't think they had ever been bosses before. And I was pretty young. I was still in high school, and they were kind of having to teach me how to work in a way, in the way that they wanted me to, because I'd always been working as a babysitter or positions like that in the past. So that's very different work than what they needed from me.
In that particular job, would you be more interested in discovering and drawing out the optimal way to do the job and sort of self lead without maybe so much harsh criticism or whatever? Or does it sound better to you to work for someone who is able to train you up exactly in the way that they expect everything to be done?
I think it's better if they tell me what the outcome they want is. I think it's good to show me how you do something, but I think it's better if I know what the outcome is that you want, and then show me the way that you do it, but maybe give the autonomy for me to possibly figure out a better way, or a way that works better for me. I will say I'm not great at following a step by step, because that doesn't really account for a lot of the situations that actually happen. And then I end up having to ask them questions, and then they, I think, feel like when I've experienced that, it feels like they don't think that I'm capable because I'm asking questions, but they never told me the answers. They didn't account for like a certain, situations.
Yeah, that's really good to know about you. And everyone learns different ways, and
Yeah.
everybody likes to be autonomous in certain ways. So that's really helpful for me to understand that about you. And I guess that would lead me to another question. I know some people are more confrontational, where other people would really shy away from it. And maybe we'll call those people peacemakers, right? Where someone who's more confrontational, they don't mind stirring the pot, and maybe they don't even do it from a place of malice by any means. But like, if you were giving advice to your younger self, do you think that given how you have had experience now, do you think you would advise your younger self to be more assertive and stand up for herself? Or do you think that the peacemaker, like, just let it happen, take it as long as you can, and then walk away? Like, how do you feel like that should have gone?
I don't feel like I'm a good confrontational person necessarily. Like, I don't want to have confrontation, and I don't want to like beat around the bush. I don't want people to feel like they have to walk on eggshells to with me or me with them. I just like to have a pretty open relationship with people. And if I'm not doing something the way that you want me to, or if I'm not doing a good job, I'd want you to tell me, but not like yelling at me. So if I was giving myself advice when I was younger, I wouldn't say confront them. I would say, you don't have to do this anymore. You should quit. And you're not going to
Okay.
be a failure if you quit.
I like that. That's great. So, one of the things that we all know in life is that there's balance, right? So,
Yeah.
you don't have to be someone who flies off the handle. You also don't have to be someone who just takes it every single time. So, in order just to kind of close out this particular part of the interview that I'm, so curious about right now, is where on that scale does your spine, like personally, because there's not like a spot on the scale that's the optimal place to be, but like personally, where is it where I'm going to tell you how I feel? Where does that line up against the now you're going too far kind of thing?
Do you
How would you
mean-
reconcile that?
I don't think I understand the question exactly.
Because it's coming from a place of like super curiosity, I'm not even
Yeah.
sure if I understand the exact question, but like, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I have a son who has no problem asking for any concession whatsoever. And he's dyslexic. And so at school, he really learned that if you don't ask a teacher for a concession, you're never going to get it. But that's bled over into lots of parts of his life where I'll be standing somewhere and I'm like, wow, guts on this kid, right? But for him, he draws the line at like basically once it moves to like, what he perceives as disrespectful, maybe. Where I would draw the line more at the part where you can see that I'm beginning to get agitated, for example. So as you think about like where you would stand up for yourself versus it's not worth it, and I would have to go too far. Can you think of like a way to describe maybe where that line is for you?
I would hope that I would have the emotional intelligence to not feel like, most of the time it's not myself that I would be standing up for. I don't tend to get confrontational about things. And by the way, I know I've talked a lot about jobs where I've like quit or been fired. I feel really silly now that I've done that. But I hope that it shows you, I'm a very honest person. And ultimately, like I don't want to quit jobs or get fired from jobs. I want to keep a job and I want it to be long term. And so I would prefer to not have to have, I don't know if it's like have a line. It's not that. Like I want to just be respectful and I want people to be respectful of me. And I think most employers and most companies, they're trying to do what's right for their employees.
And as an employer, I can tell you that's really important is that we need to do the right thing for the company.
Yeah.
And usually the right thing for the company is to make sure that those employees are stoked to come to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a balance that we have to keep.
That's like the dream. Like I think most people would want to work at a company like that.
So let me ask you this. And it's kind of it's unfortunate. I want to go two different directions right now because you're leading me all over the place and you're so fascinating.
Sorry.
No, this is great. My favorite part about interviewing is when I get someone who's really interesting like you is that I get more questions than you have time to answer. Okay, I'm going to put both questions into one.
Okay.
Imagine a place that you found to work at that you're like, man, I would work here forever. Okay. And we already know that you have enough guts to stand up and say when it's time, when that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Which I respect. And I'm super thankful that you've shared that with me because I think at the end of the day, everyone, whether they'll admit it or not, feels that way.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to gauge from you is if you were to send out a poll in that company amongst all the employees of these people that you love working with, what would you ask on that poll that you could answer that more than 75% of the people in that company are agree? Can you give me like a list of the questions that you're like, 75% of the people in the company would agree on these things?
That's a very hard and interesting question. I've never been asked a question like that before. I think it would be they agree that their employer cares about them. Is that kind of the direction that you're looking for?
Or maybe even more important than like the place of work, like how we work together.
I mean, I think collaboratively would be one of those that I think.
You're a collaborator?
Yeah, I'm definitely a collaborator. I love working with other people. I'm good either way, but my preference is always like, I think I have a great brain, but sometimes it's better to put more brains together with different perspectives. You get different places than you would just on your own. So like collaboration would be one. I think allowing creativity and allowing people to use their strengths.
I think 75% of the people in the company or more would agree that not having everything spelled out by the book and letting them use their creative powers would be powerful. Yeah. Where do you think a company like that would fall on category of like debate or lively debate even? Where do you think that 75% line would go up to as far as like what that might look like?
For debate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Debating through like problem solving,
Yeah, it depends on the company, the culture, the leadership especially. I don't think most people would want to debate their boss. So it would have to be really trusting.
Even if their boss was interested in debate?
Well, I'd have to trust that person a lot to get.
So this is a place that you want to work at forever.
Yeah.
So what would that look like?
They would have built trust. They'd be open about how I'm doing and tell me where I can improve, but like in meaningful ways. And they would just be maybe more of a coach than a leader, if that makes sense, or a manager.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think management it's hard because it's like you're trying to manage humans who have different brains and different things. So it's like you have to organize it differently than if you're kind of alongside somebody and coaching them and helping them to be better decision makers. Like that's what I would want.
I like that a lot. Let me ask you another one that, how do you think that the sentiment of the company would overwhelmingly deal with, their favorite part of the culture of their remote company that they work at? What do you think that everyone would pretty much agree on sentiment-wise?
Did I mention I did work for a remote company before? That is part of
Oh,
my
I
experience.
saw that on your resume. It looked
Yeah.
like you worked at a VA company.
Yeah, I did. And that was my first real virtual job. The thing that I really loved is we would do power hours every week. So even though we were far apart, we would come in, we would monotask together. It was 2 times a week. So we could just come in and work on specific projects or tasks, but it was like you're in community with other people, but it's not like you're wasting time. You're actually getting more done. And we also used to have like a coffee hour every month and just get to hang out and chat. And our boss would buy us dinner. So that,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that was
That
pretty
boss
cool.
sounds a
Boss
lot
sounds,
nicer than the boss at this place. I just want to set expectations.
oh, it's okay. I mean,
Okay.
dinner wasn't the thing that made me like working there. So
Okay.
it was just a nice thing that they did.
Let me bend this conversation a little bit more towards the expertise side of things.
Okay.
This role requires, meeting with customers, onboarding them into the software. Obviously, there's no chance at this point that you understand our software at all, really, because
Yeah.
you're off the streets and you don't work in this place. But I'm curious about having worked a remote place before. I think that's really important to know is that this is a fully remote company and
Mm.
you've experienced that before. And it sounds like you've had some really good experiences with it. What kinds of things should I, as a boss, be aware of to not creep into my remote environment for people in the position that I'm asking about?
That's a good question. I think transparency and accountability are really important in a remote culture because without basically babysitting people, but you have to create systems that allow you to have transparency on what people are doing without them feeling like you're being a spy. We had a lot of autonomy where we worked. And as long as we had certain goals that we were trying to meet and we were working on projects. So as long as we were moving towards those goals and meeting our KPIs, then we had a lot of autonomy. Is that answering the question? Because I kind of feel like I've lost the question.
Yeah, I really want to just hone in on like what kinds of things would kill your motivation to keep working at a remote place and
Micro,
that could easily creep in
yeah,
given a remote work.
micromanagement. That's one thing that would really be
So you
hard.
want to be transparent, but if someone's constantly over your shoulder,
Yeah.
can you describe a little bit more about like where that line might be?
Well, I've had bosses in the past who were micromanagers, and I think it's because sometimes in companies, people become management without actually being trained to be management. So if you're not doing, in my experience at least, and one thing I'm thinking about, if I wasn't doing it exactly the way that they thought it should be done, they felt maybe like I wasn't going to get to the outcome that they wanted. And then they felt like they had to hover and make sure it was done just exactly their way. And because they had that experience, I was like, okay, well, I guess they need me to tell them every single thing that I'm doing because I wanted to make sure I was doing it the way they wanted. And then looking back at it now, I think they felt like they had to watch me all the time because I didn't know how to do it myself and I was always asking questions. But really, if they had just let me get to the end of the thing and saw what my output was, they probably would have been happy. But I don't think they knew how to do that because they kind of did that with everybody.
Interesting. Yeah, that'd be something we need to watch out for. I know that for us, something that we keep our eye on, especially with our coaches in this particular position. By the way, I'm going to step outside the interview for a second. I'm going to move into a stage that I don't do with everybody, but I'm going to try and scare you away from the job for a minute
Great. I can't wait.
because I want to make sure that if we're going to invest in you, I already like a lot of things that you've said at this point if I was hiring. Now I need to make sure that you're not living in a rose-colored glass area. And I'm going to try and break you a little bit here. Not like aggressively, but I want to make
Am I
sure
going to
that
be crying by the end of this?
if you're crying, I did something very wrong.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things that we try to watch out for, especially in this particular position, is that you could find yourself in Zoom meetings, having 1 hour Zoom meetings for 6 or even 7 hours of your 8 hour day.
Mm.
When we're really busy, it's just back to back meetings. Have you ever worked in a place where you actually had that kind of workload of back to back to back meetings for an entire work shift?
Not consistently all the time, but at the VA company, we did have a lot of meetings. And so it kind of went and it flowed seasonally in a way for us. So there were periods of time where I would be in Zoom meetings every day till the end of the day. And that could go on for weeks.
How do you recover at the end of a day like that?
Well, I actually don't mind Zoom meetings because I feel like I'm really focused on the part of being, being able to meet new people. And like you're talking about, you're very curious. I'm very curious. That's what keeps me interested. I could have the most boring job, but I can find something interesting in it because of that curiosity that I have.
Okay. I'm going to stop real quick to another side. This was a very important question that I flipped my first tricky question out. And that was, how do you recover from something? And I made it assume that like, that's just a terrible day. And you challenged that assumption. And that was what I was looking for, just to see, like, to test to see if this is actually a job you would like. Because if you're like, yeah, I would just have a nice long glass of wine, or I would
have a couple beers and then
and then I'll be ready for it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Then I would know that every day you're having to recover from this. Now, as an introvert, I would have to. As an extrovert, and I'm going to ask you some other questions that are going to do similar things, but I just wanted to kind of tell you what I'm doing there because...
Thank you. This is the most challenging part of the interview because I don't like Zoom meetings, but my character does.
Oh, all right. So after you satisfactorily answered that question, I would ask the next one would be, you mentioned earlier that you really like having the autonomy of using creativity. You already said you're a collaborator. And I think that this job is going to be both really fulfilling in some ways, but also I worry about some of the other aspects that I want to bring up to you. Number one is, as a coach, you'll be meeting back to back with our clients all the time. And yes, you will periodically have internal team meetings that will allow you to kind of get to know your team. And that's part of culturally my responsibility is to make sure that you have enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just curious if you have ever been in a situation where you started feeling isolated because you were in so many meetings externally that you didn't really get a chance to, maybe at the end of a week, you're like, man, I hardly talked to any of my coworkers this week. Have you ever been in a situation like that?
Well, at our last company, we had Slack. And so even like throughout the day, we would be just putting in little memes and stuff just to kind of stay connected in our team. So I didn't feel disconnected a lot from the team just because that was happening. And it felt like, even though it's virtual, it felt like connection. Sometimes there'd be like funny jokes or whatever that we would put in. And I can imagine that it could be hard for some people and they might feel isolated, but I mean, I'm going to be in meetings with people, right? So I think it's more isolating when you're just working virtually alone and not meeting with anybody.
Cool. A couple other things that you also gave me a pretty satisfactory answer there as far as me understand that you're going to be okay. The other thing I was listening for, but obviously it's fine. In expertise, you would have told me, by the way, when you're packed with meetings, you're going to get stood up. There's going to be time, and those are the opportunities that I look for doing other things. That would have been something that I've been like, okay, this is someone who's done this before. They know it and they know how to find extra time in a day to do other things.
Yeah.
So anyway, not to say you answered it wrong, but just to say that those are little things that I'm looking for that will signal to me that this person has experience. Now, if there's a marketer and I was saying, you go over budget on a campaign, if you had expertise, you might tell me something like, yeah, of course I'm going to go over budget sometimes, but I also am going to have ones that go under budget. And so I'm never like micromanaging one specific campaign. And that would tell me, okay, this is someone who's done this before. They know. And just the little signatures that someone will throw out there.
Because we do get stood up sometimes. I don't think I would have answered it that way still, even knowing that you wanted it, because that wasn't part of the question.
Again, part of the curiosity is me not wanting a specific thing. It's me listening for things that go, only someone who has ever stood in these shoes would be able to tell me that detail. And so being stood up for meetings is one, but it might also be like, when you said memes, that's someone who, like you said Slack, you knew that software, you knew about how to throw memes in. Like those are little signatures of things that I'd be like, this will not be her first rodeo.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to someone, in specific instances having their first rodeo, but when I'm looking for a professional, these are things that I'm just like, okay, training's going to go well here,
Yeah.
I already forgot the other one I was going to throw out there to try and scare you.
I want it to be really scary.
No, maybe it'll come back to me. So I think you've already helped me, just again, stepping out of the interview, you've already helped me curiosity-wise understand a lot about the things that light you up. I have tried to knock you down in a way that would feel very empowering for you to throw me, like things that would have not felt weird for you to say, don't love it, but I can make it happen. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm listening to that real close. And then we've already talked a little bit about conflict. That was another really important thing. Like, how do you deal with things when they're not going your way? You already brought some of that up. So I went down those veins. I already got it. So in the interest of sort of moving us and not taking the whole time up with this whole interview, I just wanted to kind of check in with the listener and let them know that right now, curiosity wise, I'm like, this is a pretty good candidate. I think that I want to move forward with this candidate because I feel like I've heard a lot of things that value wise line up with what we want to do. She talked about transparency. That's a really important thing to us. We also have, as part of our transparency thing, is that we don't measure to prove, we measure to improve. And it goes back to, we actually have another part of that talks about not micromanaging because we're professionals. So I'm already values wise, you've already said enough things that I'm like, okay. And you've got some salt. You've already proven your salt in a few areas. So now I'm going to move to the part where I talk about my process about what it would be like to work with each other. Okay. Well, this is super interesting. And I really enjoyed our conversation today because you've hit on a lot of things that are really close to my heart. And I think it'd be kind of fun to get a chance to work with you.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we do in this company is we don't work with people we've never worked with before. And so I would like to offer you a job, but the job I'm going to offer you is going to be a contract job. Okay. Now, this job is 8 hours of work. Now, are you currently working right now?
I am, but I could take some of my vacation time.
No, don't do that. No, that's fine. This 8 hours of work, we can string it out over, however long you need to do it. If you could do it in the mornings or in the evenings outside of your regular work hours.
I could do it outside of my hours.
Okay. Now, the reason we do this is because we're going to get a chance to see how good you are at different things that are related to the job, but maybe, we're not going to make you do the actual job until you've had the training. But I have a specific job in mind where you will be giving a presentation. Have you ever used Google Slides before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is the person that you'll be working under, his name is David. And David's job is to make sure that we have the best customer success team in the world. That's his whole mission. So obviously he's going to be very interested in the notes that I've taken during our meeting, but he also is going to be really interested to get a chance to work with you as a contractor. Now, as a contractor, what we're going to do is we're going to hire you to put together a presentation about the merits of giving quotes with packages in it. Okay. And we need this presentation. David's hiring you to prepare this presentation and give it to his customer success team. And what you would do is you would just present to them the benefits, advantages, features, and maybe even some of the downsides, but understand how to work with those downsides of presenting pricing in a package proposal.
Can I ask a question? Would this be related specifically to your software or just in general?
No, just in general. Yeah, because obviously if you learned about our software, you probably find some secret hacks that would help you put together a presentation. I think that would be probably pretty awesome. But my goal here, I'm going to be really transparent about what my goals are. My goal is to see how you work with David and getting the preparation part of this done. He'll be able to send you the sort of the brief on what we're looking for here and the definition of done. And you don't have to take all 8 hours. We're going to pay you $20 an hour for 8 hours. And you're going to use however much of that time you need. I would ask you, please do not go over 8 hours. And then give yourself one of those hours just as part of your presentation time, because you're going to present this to our success team. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, do you have access to Google Slides already?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have now.
Cool. So what we'll do is I'm going to put you in touch with David. David's going to give you the brief, and we are going to have you just work on it as you are. And then when you know that you're about halfway through, and David's brief will tell you to do this, you will reach out to David and you will tell him exactly where you're at on it and what you have left. Now, if you're only 2 hours in and you're halfway through, do not be alarmed. That's not cause for alarm. Being fast and efficient is no problem. If you need all 8 hours, all 7 hours, I should say, that's also not a problem. Being thorough and taking the amount of time that you need, no concerns whatsoever. You're getting paid 8 hours regardless.
Okay.
And then when you give this presentation, understanding there is that David has hired you as a consultant to come in and teach our customer success team the merits of this. You'll need to, at the halfway point, be able to give David a time that he can schedule it with the team. And you'll be in charge of creating the calendar invite. And then he'll go ahead and add the rest of the team as attendees to that time. So you'll work out the time with him and then get it on the calendar and be the calendar owner.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah. So you're saying that I would use my Google Meet, like through my Google account, to set up the appointment with David, and then he would add everybody to the thing, and then I'd just be presenting. I do have a question. Would I be allowed to use AI as part of this, or do you prefer that I don't use it at all?
That is such a great question. Thank you for asking that. I love that. You know what that tells me? That tells
What's
me that
that?
you would never want to pass off work that you didn't do as work that you did do. And that's
Mm.
super cool of you. But in a world of AI, I can't tell you how much I love that you asked that question, because we do need to learn to integrate with AI. And
Mhm.
that does show me that you are ready to present at the very best, regardless of what yours is. Part of the skill is making AI feel good. So I'll give you a quick coaching tip.
Okay.
If it feels like it's done by AI, then you did it wrong. Okay.
I wouldn't want to read it if it felt like it was done by AI.
Well, that tells me a lot about you too, then. So, yes, use
Great.
AI to the fullest extent. So, that's a fantastic idea. Any other questions that you have about this, you are allowed to reach out to David anytime. He has a
Okay.
very high standard for how quickly he'll get back to you. So, I don't expect that you would ever wait long. And if you're going to be a member of this team,
Mhm.
you would understand that we take care of each other. One of our company values is that ego is not our amigo, and that we take care
I
of
love
each other.
that. How many people are on your support team?
I'm happy to tell you that. I'm just curious because I think this question might be coming from a place of like giving a presentation. How many people would you feel comfortable giving a presentation to?
It's actually harder to sometimes give a presentation to one person versus the many, but I approach it differently. Like those are two different types of presentations. So if it's just like a couple people versus like 30 people, that's, I have to bring a different energy.
Cool. I love it. Well, it's a great question. And it'll be five. It'll be
Okay,
five people.
great. Perfect.
And so, yeah, bring your A game. You're going to love David. I'll
Great.
talk him out right now. You're going to love working with him, and you're going to love presenting to him.
Awesome.
So,
Okay. Thank you so much. This is a really interesting interview. Can I ask you a question?
yeah, I would love that. I was actually just getting ready to ask you what other
Oh.
questions you might have for me.
I'm just curious why you started a software company for helping people sell things.
Well, it's a long story, but the short part is a little bit embarrassing. I'll come out with it. I'm terrible at selling. So I created
Oh.
software that could.
I love that. Actually, that makes me feel really good because most founders would never say such a thing, but
Yeah.
it's a great story to have.
Yeah. That's why one of our company values is transparency. You mentioned something earlier in our interview about transparency, and you're going to find that the people who work here, we don't criticize with the purpose of cutting anyone down, but we're all looking to improve. And it's hard to improve when you put on a facade that's not quite real.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That I'm really glad that you said that.
Any other questions you might have as we come to the end of this?
Not yet. I think I'm more thinking about because you said you're going to send me what I need or you're going to connect me with David. So I think I'll be able to ask him more of the questions. That was really the only question I think that I have for you because the pay has already been published and yeah.
Just so you know, as far as pay, we get paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month. And this is a salary position. So if you're in back-to-back meetings all day, you'll have a set amount of hours. So you'll know when your day starts, you'll know when your day ends. You won't always know exactly how everything's going to go in the day just based on who shows up or doesn't show up to meetings
Yeah.
and what internal meetings will be on your calendar. But you will be managing that calendar. And our expectation is that you show up to 100% of your meetings and then, take care of the team in the best way you can outside of what you're doing outside of those meetings.
Yeah. I think it would be really embarrassing if I didn't show up to one of my own meetings. So I'm sure it can happen, but
Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. Excellent.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. And then that's kind of the end.
The
So,
end. Yeah.
did you kind of catch the drift? I mean, you as a fellow entrepreneur probably quite got it, but we work with
yeah.
people we've worked with before. Do you understand all the benefits and understanding there?
We actually do that. We hire people literally the same way that you talked about it. We want people to do projects before, like if they've passed through the system, we want to see what they can do and we give everybody the same project. I don't know. Do you do that? Do you give everybody the same?
Yeah. Obviously, a developer project is going to be different
Yeah.
than a.
Based on like
Yeah.
the team they're on, of course. But I
Yeah.
want to know, because how can you gauge if something's good or not if you haven't given the
Right.
same thing
And
to
you see someone,
people.
you go, wow, this person really performed like I've never seen anyone
Yeah.
perform on this before.
And I also do the thing where we pay them the same no matter how long it takes. And I do the same thing of saying, like, it doesn't matter what the length of time is, whether it takes short or long, you're going to get the same money for it. I don't remember how we make it because that is a tricky thing. You want to know how long something takes somebody.
I was kicking myself at the
Yeah.
end there because I didn't finish that part, which is to say, well, I guess I could have just handed off to David and
Yeah.
made sure he understood. But when you're done with the meeting, we're going to do a group interview with me, you, and David. In that meeting, we're going to be asked, I would just leave it to you. Like, we're going to meet, and then the hiring process from that point should be pretty quick. But up to that point, that we're in decision-making mode, and then we'll have a debrief meeting where we'll discuss
That's
it.
a really good part of it too, which is setting the expectation for how long this is going to take. And I'm not in recruitment all the time. I go in and out, but I like to remind my team, like, because we talk about it as if, these people, they have lives. Just like when you were hired here, it really sucks to apply to places and we need to show them respect. And
Yes.
whether they get the job or don't get the job, we should tell them because it's the least that we can do.
I would normally press a little bit like, how long do you think it'll take you to get these 8-hour squoze into your life without driving you out of your mind? Because if they work a job that just, I can't get to it till the weekend, I couldn't possibly do this, then I would say, okay, so do you feel like you'll get to that halfway point and be able to call a date by next Monday? And I would try to get something there because it benefits both of us, right?
Yeah.
It helps set expectations on my side, but it also helps them know when they're going to get to the end of this interview process and that they're in a lot of control of that.
Yeah.
Now, if I have a lot of candidates, I'll also be candid about that and say, we have about 4 people right now, or we have a certain number of candidates.
Yeah.
I might not say the number, who are also in this project. And I just want to make sure that you know that we're trying to get everyone's final work done and get a debrief in by the end of next week, or by I might lead them a little bit that way just to make sure that they have an expectation. That is such a critical part too, because true colors do start to come out a bit there as well. And the debrief is when they are really going to start, their lips are going to loosen up a little bit in terms of how hard was this? How long did it take you? When you got in front of the group and you said this thing, I noticed you like quickly back, and then that's when they'll like sort of let their hair down a little bit more and let you really see how they deal with that pressure or whatever.
I like that. We don't actually do a debrief. We ask for a Loom video after the project, just explaining what they did and stuff. I'm pretty sure that's what we're doing right now. But I like the debrief because you're right. You're going to get so much more from somebody. Yeah, because they're more familiar at that point with everyone.
And they'll laugh stuff off that normally they would be scared to share in an interview.
Yes. Yeah. You did really good, Kurt. You're a good interviewer.
Oh, thanks. So to go back to what I said my framework was going to be, I started out just very, very curious. I was happy to go wherever you're going to go, and anything that helped me understand your expertise or how you deal with conflict or pressure, that was good. And then understanding what lights you up. And then again, I actually don't always try to steer someone away from the job, because I feel like in an interview, that's just so obvious. Like, what's your weakness? I care too much. Aren't you afraid that working back-to-back meetings will scare you? Like, oh, no. I thrive in back-to-back meetings.
Right.
But you seeded it for me a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is too good. Like, she's already going down this road with me. So I'm always happy to do that, because I want to make sure that when the position is offered, that they don't think they're getting a unicorn and then they find out that they're getting an old dead pony.
Yeah. The question I did like to ask, and I think we still ask this question, is I really like to know how their best friend would describe them.
Oh, that's a good question.
Because it's really hard for me to say what I am as Melody.
You know what? I did something similar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you picked up on it, but when I asked you to give advice to your old self, that was a way for you to step outside. Because that's the thing, is it like, how honest are you? I am ultra honest, right? But if I said, what would you tell your old self now that you've got the wisdom that you have now? It gives you permission to step out, show off your wisdom, which is what I want. And also for you to speak to someone else, which what your best friend thing does, is that I'm outside of me, and it brings a new perspective and permission for some extra honesty. Unfortunately, the best friend's always going to have nice things to say about you.
Sometimes they don't.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah. I've never tested that question before.
It depends. Yeah.
My best friend says I'm really stuck up and like snotty. And you're like, okay, So
Yeah.
they're still best friends. So not so snotty that they're not friends. But now I know that's maybe how her humor works or something like that. Maybe. Yeah.
You learn a lot about people when you ask weird questions. But yeah, I liked that. That was a fun interview. I actually want to go apply for some jobs now and see if I would be hired for that.
Well, I'll tell you, it was everything in my power not to offer you a job right there.
Well, I would have considered it just based on the interview, although I have to decline due to all the Zoom meetings.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, because you were lying about that.
I was not lying. I was playing a character just as you did the first time.
I was being 100% truthful. That's how I really would have been.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think this
has been a fun podcast, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. I would love to know what other people's interview questions are that they ask that are interesting. And I'd love to know like what the best answers they've gotten, like almost like the worst best answers that they've gotten.
Yes. Oh, there's the war stories. And you and I both have them. That would be another. We're so long on this podcast. We should do another one maybe where we can share some war stories. But this has definitely been like an interview ride along, I think is almost what I would call this. Maybe that'll be the title of the podcast.
That's a good title.
Because the cool thing about this is that as an interviewer who's never, when you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson, you're a supply chain person, you're HR, like you're all these different visionary. And with all those responsibilities, almost all of them, you don't get a ride along to ever get a chance to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I went to the inn last week so that I could do a ride along as an innkeeper. I decided to keep my day job though.
Now, I think it's important to also say along this ride along is that no one here is saying that I just gave the best interview in the world or that Melody's was the worst in the world by any means. They do something very accurate. They tell us where we started. And I would say that your experience is very true to my early days of interview. And this last one is exactly calibrated to where I'm at right now in my interview process.
Yeah, I think that that's very true. I know we think similarly about how we want to capture information from people because I also come from a big place of curiosity and really wanting to understand people, which is, I think, rare. I think a lot of people have not experienced that. And so they're looking for the catch sometimes. And I really try to prep people ahead of time by talking about it. I sent out a video to people talking about it. Like we do a lot to prep them to know, like, you won't know what the right or wrong answer is that we're looking for. It's not probably what you expect. So just be yourself. Like that's what we really want. And sometimes that works. And
that's interesting. I actually, where my big shift came from is that there's not a right or wrong answer per se.
No.
There's who are you? Like just who are you? And if you are a delightful person who has an annoying laugh, you might not be the right person for working with this other person in the company. And that was a weird and petty example, but I hope the point's coming across that like, we just want to know who you are. We don't work with people we've never worked with before.
So I didn't know if I was doing a good job on your interview or not, to be honest, because I don't know what you wanted, right? I mean, you were telling me kind of what you wanted, but even some of the questions, I was like, oh, I wouldn't know. I didn't even know how to answer some of those questions because they were pretty deep. And that's how I like to do questions too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we have this podcast.
I'll tell you, the reason you didn't know is because I don't care. What I care about is who you are. Like, that's the curiosity of like, when you were an elf for Santa Claus, you just toughed it out.
I really
So now I know that you could potentially be a doormat. So now I need to find out, like, does she have a spine?
Interesting.
Will she stand up to me? That's why I asked you. What, like, even if the boss wanted to debate things, would you debate it?
I would have thought differently. The way that I would have perceived it is that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get a job done.
Exactly. It's not that I didn't see that.
No, I know. But it's interesting that as an interviewer, we can both find different things or be looking for different, which is how everybody is. It really depends on the person.
When you said, I really like new people, places, the window cleaning, I like new people, places, I like to complete the mission, I like the culture. I'm like, okay, all right, she's ringing my bell here because every day she's going to be solving new problems for new people. Yes, it's the same setup, but this person gives quotes this way. This person gives quotes that way. They're in this industry and they're in that industry. This person, they're very direct. This person's very indirect and you have to dig a little deeper. And you like that change of scenery. Okay, good. You like new people. You're an extrovert. I could tell you're an extrovert. Okay, great. This is working great. So I'm checking these boxes, but if I keep showing my hand, oh, you're in. Like, no, because what if she also, like, I made a statement about we expect you to show up 100% of your meetings. If you'd be like, okay, what happens if you do miss a meeting? I would know a ton about you. But up to that
But
point in the
would you?
interview, yeah, I would.
Would
I
you?
would. Because if someone says, what happens when I miss a meeting?
What happens
The
if I
idea,
missed a meeting?
I know that you, like for me, it means that missing a meeting is even on your radar.
But wouldn't you think most people would never ask that question because they're smart enough to know, like, you don't want to,
Yes, I guess it would also depend on how it came up and how the rest of,
yeah,
like, you are a very candid person and were
right.
direct enough to ask questions. So I kind of already knew that about you.
There are some people who don't know what they're saying when they're saying it.
Yeah.
And those are the people who would be like, so what
Socially
happens if
unaware.
I miss a meeting?
Socially unaware. And actually, in
Yes.
today's, I haven't noticed it so much in the Filipino culture when we hire Filipino employees, but certainly in the American culture, this like upcoming generation is like they're the main character, is their
Yes.
term. And so when they're the main character, they actually don't hedge on stuff that, like what you just pointed
I
out.
know.
They do feed a lot of information out. Just, well, they grew up in a social media world where
Yeah,
everything
that's
goes on
true.
Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I took a ton of notes, and a lot of it was just me trying to keep up with who you are and stuff that I could come back to a little bit later if I needed to.
So do you write your notes in your meeting? Like we always use Fireflies or whatever to keep our notes for us, the transcripts.
Unfortunately, I can't. I mean, yes, I can get a nice thorough note afterward, but I can't revisit something in my Fathom recorder in this
Mm.
specific meeting. If like I need to be able to come back to like, so in the elf thing, like I need to remember you're the elf
Oh, I know
girl.
what
Like,
you're saying. Okay.
and I need to remember, like, you mentioned earlier that you really like new places and things, but you also said that back to back meetings, you're in the same place every time. So I
Yeah.
can keep coming back and
You
forth.
meant during the interview. Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think I'm that. I do take notes, but when I look down at the notes, they make no sense most of the time.
Well, if you were, I don't know if you can see my screen here. They're not good. They're not,
Yeah.
I'm writing super fast.
Yep.
And I know what they are long enough for an hour to make it through an hour long interview or 30,
I don't know if
45
I
minute.
could. I don't know if I would make it through. I mean, I'd be looking at the notes 5 minutes later and being like, what was I trying to do? It's better
Yeah.
if I'm in the moment usually, but
My notes for me convey an energy. So I remember the energy of that note.
yeah, I get
So.
that. That's very woo of you.
Call references. I wrote that down because you said that
Oh yeah,
it'd
because
be good for me to call your old boss to figure out why you left.
yeah, I challenge you to call my old boss. I demand it.
Yeah. So the facial cream company. Yeah. I got it all. Like,
Nice. Yeah. It was not just creams. It was makeup. It was all sorts of things.
yeah.
Yeah. Some of the most expensive brands you can buy.
Wow. I wouldn't know the difference between them and whatever Kmart sells, but
I know.
sure. But anyway, to the listeners, hopefully you've been having fun on this little ride along, a fly on the wall, listening to us kind of giggle about what we used to do and what, what we do. And we giggle because that's how growth works, right? You're like,
Mhm.
that's where I used to be. And taking that time to look back on that. If you're in that spot of where your interviews feel more like self-promotion than actually vetting, I don't know that that's something you should really be too worried about. You just need to figure out if intentionally you want to grow a different direction. And I can tell you for me, and Melody and I talked about this at length. So for me, it's been a game changer. And it's good for the people coming in for expectations. It's good for me to know that I really weighed that person's talents. And talents are important. Attributes, I think, are more important personally. And then, like Melody was saying in her interview, some people really want to be directed step by step by step, and other people just want to have outcomes. I can now provide better jobs for someone because I'm interested in what it is that they want. And our coaching program can get as detailed as you want it to be, but we're also only interested in outcomes. And so our coaching program or, onboarding very much is about modeling the outcome and seeing the techniques that other people use, which we can outline very distinctly. Now I know, you know what I mean? And now I can convey that to David as well. And I think that there's a lot of really big benefits in intentionality around this whole process.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think most people actually nowadays, especially, they don't want just a generic interview. They would probably, the kinds of people I would want to hire would want to go through that kind of interview process and be able to show more of who they are. But I don't know that that's the norm yet. but maybe I don't want to hire the norm.
And maybe our listener doesn't want to hire the norm. What is normal anyway,
I
actually?
think normal is a 9-to-5er who just
Clock in, clock out.
clock in, clock out. And they're like, well, is there overtime? How much vacation time is there? Not that's bad. We need vacation time, but it's more of like they're more focused on the role and not focused on their growth. It's more of like I look for people who are interested in how they're going to be able to expand in a place. And that's how, actually, I forgot about that. I always start my interviews by saying, like, I want to put it out there right now that I know that even if I hire you, you will not stay with me forever. And we always pretend like when we're employers, like that's actually going to happen. We act like that's going to happen.
And we get hurt.
Yeah.
We start getting hurt when it doesn't because we think, oh, maybe they're rejecting me as a person.
Right. And so I say, like, I know you might outgrow us someday. You might need a different opportunity, but I never want you to think, I want you to stay as long as you're learning and growing right beside me. And you'll know maybe when the time has come when, it is time to leave. I hope you talk to me about it so that we can make it a graduation as we do in our company.
Like, would you have talked about it with them first? And like, obviously we know the right answer to that, but like, maybe if I feed it to you just a little bit different, like where you can potentially answer that question in a more neutral way.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of good stuff there. Hopefully it's helpful to somebody. I think in the future, I'd love to talk about how AI is changing the way that we can measure people's talents and what they're actually capable of. And I think that's going to change the game. It already has, but it's going to change recruitment quite a lot, especially if you have people doing skills testing and assessments. But AI can do that now.
I don't want to go backward in this. I know we're trying to close, but I want to just say, when you brought up the AI thing, like mad respect, somebody who understands that calculators make us better mathematicians. In that interview, there's no way I wouldn't have, if it wasn't for this podcast trying to keep it a little bit concise. There's no way I wouldn't have asked you, what tools do you use? How did you come across it? I would want to know a little bit about your AI story and how you view it as a tool. And like, just without me even telling you what this project is and the actual details, but just the general knowledge you have, like what wheels are spinning in your head right now? I want to know how you plan to employ AI.
That's exactly. I would be so interested in that conversation too.
I would try to have enough discipline to like save as much of that for afterward, but there's no way we're getting out of this interview without me understanding how you employed AI, because that tells me a lot about like how you view that lever.
And I also think it's important to ask people, the last thing I'll say about that is, on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe how good at AI or how comfortable or confident you are in your ability to utilize it. Because I think that somebody who scores themselves really high is probably not as good at it than somebody who would say, you know what, it's really hard to gauge. I mean, I don't feel like I'm that good because every day something changes, but I'm consistent in my growth. That's
a great point.
Well, thank you for this. I appreciate my second job interview. I mean, I guess I must have interviewed to be an elf, but I don't think so. I mean, Sounds
like you just show up to places and like, I'm here at the end, start cleaning. I'm here as an elf, put the mustache on, get out there. I
volunteered to clean, and I definitely, that mustache is a traumatic part of my journey of work for sure.
When you said it's allergic reactions, I'm like, this sounds traumatic.
Yeah. Can you imagine putting glue on your face every day to put on an itchy, scratchy mustache?
Yeah, that's a deal breaker for me. The moment someone at a job says put glue on your face, I'm like, dang, I just realized I can't work here.
But all the joy the children would miss from you simply because of the mustache.
If you have enough confidence that I can give that joy without a mustache, I can work here.
Well, guess what? People don't wear mustaches anymore. I'm sure for a long time. The last time I went there, nobody was wearing a mustache. So they probably took that away as a requirement. Well, thank you for the conversation. Thank you for my second to third job interview. I learned a lot. I mean, I was playing a character and also trying to figure out how to answer the question. So I was actually trying to figure out how to answer your questions in a very real way for me, while also trying to remember the character I was playing. It was a lot.
Well, it must be frustrating when you're trying to come up with the right answer and there isn't one.
Yeah. But I think that's the part you say it up front. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. The question is, do we believe that?
Yeah.
So,
Melody, it's been an absolute pleasure today. And I hope that everybody got something out of today. But until next time, we'll see you guys later.
adios.